Let's talk about that quickly.
We are not on anybody's schedule
I
but our
know.
own.
By the way, I never had that saying before. It's actually really helpful. Hold on. Yeah. Who is this? I'm sorry, what is this in relation to? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize this is my European Wax Center appointment. Okay, so tomorrow will be fine. Anybody.
Front to back this time. Front to back.
Anybody at 9:30. Thank you. Bye.
Like, all right,
All
let's tell our guests to come on.
right, come on. John.
By the way, any kind of romance you think between him and you?
Between me and who?
Maybe I'm doing the matchmaker thing right now.
What? Why, first of all, why did you say that?
Just to fuck with you.
Oh, don't do that. He's Jewish, so probs no.
There he is.
Testing, testing. Oh,
Uh,
hello.
Can you hear me?
What'd you say?
I said my head's a lot bigger
Yes.
than I realized.
Okay, well, Yosef, Jason Salstein, introducing Liz Cohen to our good friend Jon Warech. Today's guest is living proof that you can leave Hollywood behind and still live a life of drama. Jon Warech went from covering Paris and Brittany to campus satyrs and social justice, as he is now the Hillel director at FIU. Let's
Whoa.
start at the beginning. How does a guy go from TMZ to Talmud?
Love that.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
First, I'm going to go back to how Jon and I met. Jon and I have mutual friends, and we used to hang out in Miami. And Jon was writing for People magazine, I believe, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Moved out to LA, and then he came back. So I've known Jon probably, in 20 years.
Wow. Wait, so Jason, were you in LA, Calabasas, when you were there?
This was when I was in my early 20s. Jon, I believe, moved. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I was a journalism major at University of Florida. I was always a writer at heart. You know, I was like one of those kids on the playground scribbling in a notebook kind of guys. The entertainment stuff I sort of fell into after college. An editor that I had when I was an intern at the Miami Herald in high school was running the Miami bureau for People magazine, and they needed a young guy to cover the nightlife scene, the growing nightlife scene here in Miami. And so I just sort of fell into that job.
Were you that guy? Were you out in the streets? Were you already in the scene and then you were covering it, or you had to figure out what the nightlife was first?
Yeah, I mean, like, I grew up here, but
I beg to differ.
Okay.
Jon's the definition of cool.
Well, maybe I grew into that.
Well, we'll see about that.
But I certainly didn't expect to be that kind of person. I mean, I enjoy Miami Beach. I enjoy the nightlife. I was always sort of into it. I wasn't buying bottles and the guy that could just stroll right into the club until I was working for People magazine. So I was a guy who used to definitely wait on lines and didn't have any real connections.
You didn't have the table. You
were covering the club scene in Miami at the height of, what was it?
Yeah.
Bed, Honey, Mint, Privé.
Exactly. This was like 2003, 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there for those years. And Miami was huge. So, yeah, I was out every night of the week. There was no, like, real Wynwood or Brickell or any of that kind of stuff. So everything was based in Miami Beach. There were celebrities here all the time. New Year's was a very big thing. We had Super Bowls. We had 2 MTV awards here.
Oh, my God.
And so we had a lot of action. And I was 23, 24, 25 years old. And I was sort of running that department because everybody else they were less cool. So they had New York and LA both had big offices, and then they had little bureaus. So Miami had maybe 4 people full-time who were working within the office, which I don't even remember where the office was, Doral maybe. Then they hired me to just do the nightlife. So technically I was freelance, but I worked every night of the week. So it was hours-wise a regular job without like the healthcare.
And how would you get tips? I mean, would bus boys at the restaurant tell you that, hey, Brittany's at the Versace mansion? How did it work?
Yeah, so there were two things. Sometimes there were like events that we would cover, and so a celebrity would be either hosting or they'd fly them in to be there. Dave Grutman was the one who started that down here. He was just promoting and running things, but he had an
He's like a
eye for
part. Didn't he
talent.
start as like a promoter?
Yeah, but he was really good at spotting celebrities who were just about to become famous. So that's how he became friends with Kim Kardashian, and I remember Eva Longoria earlier in the days, or the boy band. He was very good at getting these people right at the beginning. So they would come to Miami, not for $1 million, but just probably to have a good time at the time. And then I would come in, I would interview them, sometimes outside, sometimes in the middle of a nightclub. There'd be Lindsay Lohan and Wilma Valderrama dating for the first time, and I'd be in the nightclub. Everybody wanted the press when they were here because they weren't like home, so it wasn't like an invasion of privacy. So I'd be at the promoter tables or even with the celebrity. I'd be right there all the time. Nobody cared. People wanted the story because this is before social media. I would write something or interview someone. It would go in the magazine maybe a week later, and it would still feel like news, which doesn't happen anymore.
Were these like Lindsay Lohan spotted at the Delano, or you were actually taking photos along with trying to get a quote, or was this just you on the beat to give factual information at what was happening?
I didn't take photos. That was, Seth from World Red Eye. He was the photo guy. A lot of times we'd be traveling around together. He was the one allowed in. There'd be paparazzi outside, but Seth was had the access inside. So he was taking photos. And then I would be there either as a fly on the wall, writing everything that happened, reporting as if someone, who's at a party. But a lot of times I'd also interview them, and I would get quotes, and I would get, information. A lot of times the questions they always want to hear about are relationships, family stuff. Sometimes People Magazine would have these set questions they would ask every celebrity around town. So you'd have 2 pages of these 20 celebrities answered the same question. So you'd be involved in doing that kind of thing. And then there were larger stories too. My big break, so to speak, was Lindsay Lohan was rushed to the hospital on a New Year's, and I had a friend who worked at the Delano at the time tip me off. And so that was big breaking news for People Magazine for a day. That was a big deal. But you meet a lot of different people. It was interesting. In Miami, probably 3.5 years or so, and then I moved to LA in 2007. Once I started with the entertainment journalism, I felt like I already worked for People Magazine. There was nowhere else to go in that field around here at the time. I had done, a couple articles for Ocean Drive, and I was writing a column for a local weekly paper in Miami Beach, the Sun Post it was called. So I was writing this gossipy nightlife column that also brought in a lot of promoters and local socialites. I'd write about them. It was kind of the first time they were getting their name in print, which was cool. It was very event based. They were filming some movies down here at the time.
Bad Boys, maybe. Was it Bad Boys or Birdcage?
Boys.
There was Marley and Me was filmed down here.
Marley and Me. Is that Jennifer Aniston with the dog?
Dating John Mayer during that time? Wow, this is really early 2000s.
Wow, this schmear is really extra today.
Before that, John Mayer was dating Jessica Simpson. I remember, actually, I think you might have even come with me, Jason. We went to Nobu. We were the only people in the restaurant because I got tipped off they were there on a random night. And it was us at one table, and then it was Jessica Simpson and John Mayer at another one. And I remember she picked up the tab. That was the story, was that she paid for him. That's what I remember.
Did you report on her picking up the tab?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's embarrassing, John. Sorry, I know feminism, but no, John.
I think he was ahead of his time.
No.
John Warech, would you allow Jessica Simpson to pick up the tab if you were on a date with her at Nobu?
No chance. I would I would pay for her next 4 meals if she would let me.
What a mensch, everybody. What a mensch.
It's really the only respectable answer, so this was a test. But
And I really don't know how this is going to be recorded, John, just so you know, it seems like you're on delay. It's like Hoda and Savannah or some athlete at the Olympics. So we're just getting a little bit of a delay. But we'll make sure it works. So you're out in LA, you're doing the same thing, but when did you have an epiphany and say, I need more Moses and less Miley?
I was there for, I think, 5.5, 6 years. In that time, I worked full-time at OK Magazine. Worked for this place called Wonderwall, which was like an MSN entertainment site. I bounced around. And then I also co-authored a few memoirs. I wrote Jodie Sweetin's book from Full House. I wrote her book. Kendra Wilkinson
Whoa.
from the
Kendra,
Playboy.
is this?
Right.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Oh, got it.
Mhm.
Sorry, half.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
This a kosher
So I
conversation?
did that. Yeah. I did that. I enjoyed it. But I didn't love living in LA. It never felt like it was going to be home.
We'll get to more deli questions like, do you eat the chocolate first or the vanilla of a black and white cookie, or do we go piece and eat them together simultaneously? Look to the cookie. Look to the cookie.
Exactly.
Shout out Jerry. Shout out Jerry.
I moved back to Miami. I had done a third book with Byron Scott, the basketball player and coach. When I was writing that third book, I started to feel a little burnt out. There was a lot of Hollywood to the book writing world with agents and dealing with managers and people behind the scenes and publishing companies. It's much more Hollywood than you would think. And there were a lot of opportunities that started and stopped, or we thought we were going to have something and didn't. And I just didn't enjoy that roller coaster of it. I was really a creative person at heart. So that was like part one of it. The other part was in like 2016. I don't know if you were aware, but there was like an election and a president, and just like things in this country started going in a direction where I felt like I wanted to do something more. So I started volunteering, and that's really where it started. I was a docent at the Holocaust Memorial in Miami Beach. Just once in a while.
What is a docent? I'm only familiar with the company Dosist, which I'm not a big fan of, actually.
What?
Yeah, sorry, Docent. I tend to like more than just one hit.
Oh boy.
So I gave tours to to people who came by the memorial. A lot of times it was school field trips. In Miami, Holocaust education is somewhat mandatory in the school system. So a lot of times that education is an 8th grade or 7th grade trip to the Holocaust Memorial. So a whole class would come from a public school, and then I would give them a little tour around, and then they would meet a survivor, and I would introduce that person. It was that kind of thing.
So wait a minute. I just want to jump in here because so your daytime was like you're writing Britney Spears' memoir, and then your afternoon was you're giving tours to 7th graders. It's a really big shift.
Yeah. I'm a well-rounded person. and it was probably the other way around. It was probably the tour in the morning, and then in the middle of the night somewhere, I'm covering like Drake hosting like a New Year's at 11 or something like that. And I like wake up and I'm like, I didn't even remember writing the thing that I wrote the night before. And then maybe the next day I'm going to the Holocaust Memorial giving tours.
The Holocaust. That's a lot.
And we urge everybody to go visit any Holocaust museum.
Seriously.
Yes. In Miami Beach, it's just north of Lincoln Road on Dade Boulevard.
You're giving tours, and then you make the switch.
I was giving those tours. They needed a chaperone for the March of the Living, and they asked me if I wanted to go. I had gone in high school as a high school student in 1998. And then, so this was 2017, they needed a chaperone, and so I was happy to do it. In 2018, I really had this moment where things changed on the spot. When I went as a kid, the buses get up in front of everybody, and you have to read poems, and there's you lead what's called a tekis, a ceremony, in front of the rest of the group. And I remember when I was a kid, we did it. My group was on the first day. I got a case of the giggles in front of everybody, and I was super nervous, and it stuck with me. And the guy who was my educator on that trip, Mark Baranek, I remember him being angry in the moment, and then 20 years later, almost to the day, I'm leading the tekis, and we're meeting up with the adult group, and Mark Baranek, the same guy, is leading their group, and we're there together leading this ceremony in front of everybody, wearing our March of the Living blue jackets, the whole thing. And I just had an opportunity to redo a moment that never in a million years you would think that you could redo. I'm standing in Treblinka and leading this ceremony, but just to have that opportunity, the same guy, and he's in this line of work 20 years later still. I just had this moment where I was I want to do this, and between him and getting to know Carly Orshan, who Jason, you might know a little bit. who was working for the March of Living as well. I was just like, I
Yes.
want to be one of these people.
I went to school with her sister Samantha, and her dad
Amazing.
was my mother's divorce attorney. So there you
There
go.
you go.
Oh, it
Look
all
at
comes
look at the
around.
Shout
Jews.
out to Bobby Orshan, the best divorce attorney in probably all of Florida, I will say. He is pretty good. Um, my uncle would not be too happy about me saying that. Anyway, let's move on. All right, let's take a break, everybody, for a minute, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, everybody. We're discussing the March of the Living with Jon Warech, a Hillel director at FIU. Jon, what is March of the Living for those who do not know?
It's people from around the world. We go to Poland for Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and we march together from Auschwitz to Birkenau. We walk as a united group. But with that is a full trip where you tour concentration camps, you learn about life before the war, you learn a little bit about life now in Poland, and in many years then you go to Israel afterwards to learn about sort of the transition and the need for Israel as a homeland for the Jewish people. It's the existence of Israel really allows for the Holocaust to never happen again. It wasn't like a consolation prize, Israel. It is part of our history and our ancestral homeland. But Israel's existence, it gives us a place to go when something like the Holocaust happens and we're kicked out of these countries, which, by the way, has happened in almost every country around the world at some point throughout history. Because its existence makes sure the Jews are safe around the world, that the Holocaust won't happen again.
Yeah, because history has sort of repeated itself over and over again. And there's a certain point in time where you're like, okay, you're not signing up for that again. You know what I mean? We're not signing up for it.
So now we're marching from Birkenhaus to Auschwitz. Is that right? How long is that march?
It's all in Poland. It's not that far of a walk. It's really Auschwitz 1, Auschwitz 2. Birkenau is the other name for it. So it's the work camp and the death camp. It's more of a freedom march, right? We can now walk in and out of places where we were brought in to our death. So now we can walk in and out both and say, hey, we're still here. And people from around the world come and do that. Actually, the group from Miami was one of the founders of this program that started, I believe, in 1988. And so, it's a big program here. We take high school seniors specifically on this trip. There's an adult group that goes separately, and then we'll meet up from time to time. But the main trip is for high school seniors, and so that's what I was chaperoning. I think it's important. I think every Jewish person should go once and see these places.
I've never done it, and it's hard because I feel like it feels so somber. So, I mean, it's really important. We should all be doing it. But are there moments of joy, or how are you keeping it light and fluffy?
The whole time.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a lot emotionally.
It's definitely a tough trip. It's definitely hard. But there is, especially for young people, they see nowadays they're better connected than before. So they'll see people from LA, New York, other parts of the country who are going to go to the same college that they are. It's weird, but like they might connect for the first time on this trip somewhere, and it might even be in a concentration camp. And you might say to yourself, like, oh, is that like disrespectful in some way? But no, I think this unity, this connection, this creating of a new friendship in that scenario, I think can be really beautiful also. And so there's like a nice part to this understanding that we're 0.2% of the world population, but we have a connection. And even if it happens in the worst of places, we can bring something beautiful out of it. And so I do think there's that aspect to it, but it's really about growth too. You really discover who you are as a Jewish person when you're put in these moments. And I know we're going to get to Passover in a minute, but it's really like the same. Like so many of our Jewish holidays are people tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. That's like the Jewish holiday mentality. And Passover is certainly one of those, and Purim and Hanukkah, and a lot of the stuff that we have turned into more joyous occasions. And so to some degree, this is not really any different. We're celebrating our life. It's the March of the Living. We're celebrating the fact that the Jewish people are still here and able to do such a thing. So that's the positive spin.
That is so true. Every Jewish holiday I can really remember and celebrate is all based around food. Initial memory, gefilte fish, chopped liver, bagels and lox. Like, look at the name of our podcast. I mean, we're schmearing something. I'm schmearing something, whether it's on matzah, challah, a Mary's Gone cracker. It's something. Anyway, back to John. Liz has the next question.
What I want to hear about is really Passover. Is it up there for you on the holidays? How do you start to get excited about it?
Like I said, these holidays are all very much, some of the people tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. That's the whole thing. And Passover is certainly the main one, I think, in that department. The Jews were enslaved in Egypt when Moses leads us out into Israel, into the promised land. It's the story of our people. I think, to me, it was always one of my favorite holidays, to be honest. I don't know. I think there's something special about it. By the way, when we tell the Passover story, which you do at every Passover Seder, you give the rundown of exactly what happened. That's part of the experience.
By the way, we're still reading the Haggadah that was printed out in 1989. When I remember, it's got the Minishevitz stains and everything on it. It's like, Uncle Abe, go to FedEx, Kinko's. Let's get some new laminated ones.
That's part of the tradition. Every family does some funny things, some weird things that they keep going, and you don't even know why you're doing it. And when I was a kid, we would read all the plagues, and you dip the finger in the wine and the whole thing. When it would get to darkness, I would go over to the lights when no one was looking, and I would hit the lights and it would be dark in the room. And I don't know. I just did that every year, and it's so silly, but it was like, a fun part of the tradition. But on the more meaningful side is, in the telling of the Passover story, we always say we were slaves in Egypt. We don't talk about the Jewish people as a they in past tense, or it's we were slaves in Egypt. It's really so we can remember who we are and where we came from, and how we're all sort of in this together. Not just currently, but even throughout generations. Like there's a part of all of them inside of us. So when we say, we were slaves in Egypt, that's how we tell the story. It's really a reminder of who we are in the present day. And so I think it's a really important holiday in that way. And it's something that the Jewish Federation just did a census type thing, to find out, to break down. They do it every 10 years of the Jews in the community. And even the people in Miami who are not that religious, not really practicing daily a Passover Seder, almost everyone finds their way to a Passover Seder at some point, within a couple of years, if not every year. And so it is the one thing. There's like a few holidays where even the least observant person celebrates, and Passover, I think, is one of them. So I think it's it really stands out as something meaningful that we've all done for a long time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought about the we part of that. That makes so much sense to me, which is probably why, even with October 7th, not that we want to talk about that terrible time, but I don't think people understood why everyone felt so connected to that. And just, we all have people either in Israel, or we know someone, or you're very much connected as a group. So that makes sense to me.
Here's the question. Do you recommend someone watch Charlton Heston, The 10 Commandments, or are we watching The Prince of Egypt? What is better?
Not even a question from my point of view, but I want to hear
John. There can be miracles when you believe. Yeah, are we watching both? To me, these movies permeated into Jewish culture. It seems like it's something you do as a tradition, even.
Yeah, right. It's part of the tradition, and I recommend both, obviously. Myself, I'm an old school guy. I like the Charlton Heston old school version. I think, by the way, from a cinematic movie, it was well ahead of its time in a lot of the things they were able to do in that film. It's very impressive.
I remember it had the 2 cassettes, like it was like a long one. Anyway, I remember that.
I just remember watching Moses thinking, damn, Moses has got some muscles.
I did not do that at all.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The first time the snake
yeah, something soft to hard. You remember that pretty quick.
Okay.
Not a ping. Can we get some sound effects, producers, we don't have yet?
And add them in.
Why is there matzah? Why are we not allowed to eat leavened bread? Please discuss.
Again, it's sort of a reminder of what the Jewish people went through then. As they were leaving Egypt, crossing the Nile, 40 years in the desert, the bread didn't rise, right? So they ate matzah. That was what they could eat. And so that's what we eat too, to remember the history behind it and the suffering. We were slaves in Egypt, so we sort of, the way they in that time period.
And speaking of eating, Liz and I will be going on Friday to Kosher Kingdom to shop for our Seder plate. So John, give us a few items.
There's the karpas, there's the maror, there's what else is there? The egg. Each thing sort of symbolizes, something, but it's all really just part of the story itself. It's the life in Egypt. The harosa, it's like the mortar that they use to build the pyramids. It's the bitterness of slavery. There's a lot of symbolism. I think it's big in all Jewish holidays, but certainly in Passover. There's a lot of storytelling, also a big part of Judaism, which is a big part of my career that, I started from the beginning and still to this day. Storytelling is a big part of Jewish life. And so there's some overlap there. So I think that's what makes it a special holiday. Much like the March of the Living, on one hand, you are coming together to suffer, to sort of understand the past, but the unity behind it and the connection, the family, and the feeling of growth from being able to connect to your past really leads to a positive outcome on the other side. So it's kind of the same feeling with March of the Living, same thing with Passover. There's this, we're going to pause and take a moment to do something that might be difficult, but we're doing it to become, stronger, better, more united people. And so it's kind of a theme, but that's what I enjoy about it.
Okay, so the afikomen. You go, you break it, you hide it. What's the most you've ever got? In our family, we get cash for finding the afikomen, and it was a nice amount. I'm just curious. Yeah, we might have even gotten a hundo. Like, so the stakes were high. Where's the best place to hide the afikomen?
It's funny. I don't know. I feel like my family was cheap. I never got more than like $5 or $10. I don't 50.
Man,
50,
that's
100.
like tooth fairy
I'd be
money.
willing to do that now.
And now you're the director of Hillel. How long have you been the director of Hillel at FIU in Miami, Florida? And how did you become Hillel director? And what does that mean? What does a typical day look like?
Yeah.
That's a yes, hopefully.
So after that March of the Living moment in 2018, I got this job at Hillel at FIU probably 3 months later. I did not have a resume, but it was sort of an upstart. Hillel, it had only really opened its doors a couple years earlier. They never had a director. The board of directors, I interviewed with them. I talked about my personal journey. I grew up here, so I knew a lot of people. So when it came time for the fundraising and the outreach and sort of spreading the word on this Hillel, they thought I could be pretty good at that part of it. And I would learn the rest as we go. It's been 7 years now.
No. What is Hillel? What is the purpose?
It certainly changed a lot over the years. Hillel itself has been around for 100 years. We celebrated last year the centennial. We're on 100 plus campuses around the globe. Back when I was in college, it was really a home away from home type of place where you would go for Shabbat dinners or for holidays, holiday services, that kind of thing. They also, lead birthright trips. But today, it's way more than that. I think it's trying to connect on all levels. So for someone who's maybe less religious, it's creating programming where Jewish students can connect on whatever parts of Judaism really interest them. So there might be social justice type stuff. There might be community service type stuff. There might be Jewish learning classes where you learn you discuss sort of popular topics, but through the lens of Torah. There still are Shabbat and holiday type of programming. We do a lot of Israel education. We do a lot of in the classroom stuff too. We bring speakers and partner with the university on a Holocaust and Genocide Awareness Week. I also run our Jewish Faculty and Staff Association on campus, so we're bringing that community together as well. Because FIU is in Miami, we try to connect students to the community at large. What's going on in Miami, whether it's through Federation or synagogues or JCCs or anything, where we can connect students there, things that they want to be part of. The main goal is for me is when they graduate, they can be the best versions of themselves. They can become leaders in our Jewish community. And so sometimes it is about ritual and prayer and connecting that way. But sometimes it's just about connecting as a community or connecting to to caring for your neighbors or making the world a better place, which are all Jewish values. And so we try to cover all of them. Even we do career related stuff, help them on that path as well. So it's really a never ending mix of programming with the ultimate goal of creating community, and within the community creating future leaders here in Miami. That happens a bunch of different ways. From my previous line of work, I brought in some celebrities from time to time. We had Amari Stoudemire, we had Emmanuel Shariki come.
Didn't he just got married again, I think,
Yeah,
Amari, right?
he
Oh, I
did.
saw
Yeah,
that somewhere. It
Um,
was a big Jewish wedding.
yeah, exactly.
oh,
I want to ask about your Seder in particular, John. Who's there? What's the situation? And also want to know who's your celebrity Seder? Who are we inviting if you
right.
got to pick?
Celebrities.
It's a full week, but the main nights are the first two nights where we do two seders, which is Saturday and Sunday night this year. And so as a kid, we had big family seders, not so much anymore. So my mom and I are going to a family friend's house the first night. And then my mom works at the synagogue that I grew up in, Temple Sinai, North Dade. And so they host a second night Seder there. So I'll be there for the second night. Because a lot of our students live here or from here and they have their families to be with, we'll do holiday adjacent type stuff. So we're going to do a fourth or fifth night Seder where we bring students together. I think it's like a nice way to do both, right? We're not trying to take people away from their families, but we want to get the community together. It's a jam-packed with Seder. No celebrities will be in attendance at any of those, but certainly if I were to invite celebrities, I think obviously Jerry Seinfeld is a lock for anything Jewish at all times. I have to shout out Coach Todd Golden of the University of Florida Gators, who just won a national championship, hot off the presses. I think we want to hear from him. He was the first Jewish coach to win in 40 years or something, so he deserves a seat. That's for sure.
And John is a former Gator himself,
Yes.
actually.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Liz and I were torches, and then I became a cane. Torches are the NYU torches. Liz went to NYU.
Didn't have any Division I basketball, unfortunately.
Yeah. You probably had more Jewish players on the team then. Jewish
Exactly.
kids love playing Division II basketball.
Who else? Is there anyone else that you would have at your Seder?
Lindsay Lohan making it to Seder.
She's not Jewish, but I would love for her to be there. She's from Long Island, so she's basically Jewish, I think. You know, if you're from Long Island, it counts.
Right.
She's definitely been to a Seder or two in her lifetime.
Yeah. Seders are open to all, correct? Especially me when I have a boyfriend. They're usually not Jewish, even though they say they'll convert.
Hey, Jason, who's your celebrity?
Oh,
Seinfeld was already taken, so who are you
Oh, no,
inviting?
Jerry. There's two nights, and Jerry can come to both. I would have Joy Behar, who is not Jewish and Italian. I would have Woody Allen. I would have Larry David. I would have Amy Schumer and Madonna, and Tom Ford and Anna Wintour, just because I think that would be exciting.
That is a high-pressured Seder situation. It would need to be on point. That's a lot of pressure.
Oh, and then I would bring Jay-Z and Beyonce as well, because I think they would enjoy it.
Okay.
I like that.
Your turn.
I think Sebastian Maniscalco would be. He does this shtick about Passover and what do the Jews have after breakfast, and I want him to do that at the Seder table.
I could see Sebastian and Dave Chappelle at your Seder.
Yeah, for sure. Dave, no Jews apparently at my Seder.
We're building allyship.
Another question I have for you is, how do you bring in young Jewish people who are possibly moving away from Judaism, religion in general? What are you seeing in the world today? Are people becoming more spiritual, less religious? How do you continue to instill the importance of Judaism in the younger generation?
I actually think it's a mix. I think there's plenty of young people who are taking this time to connect on an even greater level. And in a lot of cases, it is on the religious level. I think there's something to the tradition of it all that makes people want to connect in that way. The idea of, somebody in Israel who might be struggling right now wrapping tefillin or doing the same thing that I'm doing helps create that connection, or also previous generations. So you actually do see a lot of people connecting religiously. We don't proselytize. We're not trying to pull people in. I think for the most part, Jews want to be left alone. And so because of that, I think there's responsibility, but there's something exciting about just being Jewish and learning about your history as a person and understanding your place in the world. When people use the term chosen people, it's not chosen like we want a prize. Certainly everybody hates us, so there's no prize. It's really chosen to make the world a better place and to be a person that stands up and does the right thing because they are Jewish, right? Using the knowledge and using our history to create something that betters society. And so we see a lot of young people wanting to do that as well. And it's not just standing up for anti-Semitism, which is obviously important and we see it's on the rise, but it's standing up for other people and all people and understanding that if we have the ability, then we should be doing that. And you see a lot of people connecting that way. And the truth is, it doesn't, even if you don't practice, even if you're not celebrating these holidays, if you're Jewish, you're Jewish. Like there's no real getting away from it. And so we've seen that from many generations where this happens all the time. People want to assimilate. That's also part of the Hanukkah story and also other parts of our Jewish history. People assimilating. Jews are always moving everywhere, and so we're always trying to become like everybody else, and then everybody else doesn't really accept us, and then we realize we're better off being who we are. Young people realize that. The next generation will continue to do that because we've made it through all these years, right? We've been around, we've survived. There were a lot of peoples thousands of years ago that didn't survive, that aren't around anymore, and the Jewish people still are, and so there's strength to that, and we try to get young people to realize that. There's a great Rabbi Jonathan Sachs who is no longer with us. He tells a great story. He looks at the Jewish people as this great library, and in the great library there are all these books, and in it you see your last name on a book, and then you open it and you see a bunch of pages of your family history, and then there's a blank page with your name on it. And so you have the opportunity to write your chapter of your family book that's part of the great library of the Jewish people. And we really try to get students, young people, to see that way. It's not just about them. It's about previous generations, and it's about everyone together. Because we are 0.2% of the world population, and the overwhelming majority of people have never even met a Jew. When you think about other countries in the world and where we exist.
That's crazy. Crazy. Many have said that Mark Twain was very controversial, but his essay on Concerning the Jew, I remember reading it, was extremely powerful to me, and I advise everybody to actually read that essay. I don't know if you've read it, but I was blown away by it.
I have too. Look, it's also crazy because I think we're in a bubble of we're in New York, we're in Miami. I think we can forget that that is not the norm, and the world is a much bigger place, and maybe somebody will be listening to this and learning a little bit about us.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about a mitzvah, Jason. What do you think?
We want to do a mitzvah of the day, but we also I have a quick short fire question for you. So are you ready? Okay.
Yes.
Chopped liver or hummus?
Chopped liver.
Rugula or challah?
Challah.
Gefilte fish or tuna fish?
Oof, that's tough. This time of year, gefilte fish, but any other time of the year too.
Okay. Bagel or bialy?
Bagel, for sure.
Lox or Nova?
Lox. Salty, for sure.
Regular cream cheese or scallion cream cheese?
Scallion, I think. Yeah.
Toasted and or scooped?
Depends on where you are. If it's fresh, not scooped and not toasted. But if you're one of the places where it's not so good, then definitely toasted and scooped.
Okay. Your favorite question out of the 4 questions?
It's really only one question: is why is this night different than all other nights? Everything you're asking the specific things that you're doing differently. But at the end of the day, you're really just asking, why is this night different? And I think it's an important thing to do all the time as Jews, is to say, why is this moment special? I think.
And to end this quickfire, why don't you answer why this moment is special? Why is this night different than all other nights?
Well, as far as Passover goes, I think it's different because it really feels like Jews everywhere are doing the same thing and have been for thousands of years. I think there's other holidays, other things based on where you're from, based on where your family's from, based on your religious observance, it might look different. But I really feel Passover is the one that looks pretty similar across the board. And so knowing that we're all doing it and have been doing it, that's what makes it special.
I can't wait. Now I'm like so pumped. I'm always pumped for Passover, but I'm excited. I feel like I got to really get it in gear. I don't have my matzah. Jason, do you have matzah yet?
Not yet.
Go get it.
You got to remember, my family is very Jewish in the sense of culturally, but I also went to day school with a ham sandwich during Passover. I just did. And that was a no-no, everybody. And we quickly learned that was a no-no. But I'm going to be real. My mom always, her mother passed away when she was 9. She didn't have all those traditions. So when she married my father, she was the queen of the Jewish holiday. Epicure catered. It was a big deal. I remember growing up and thinking, oh, it's Passover, it's Hanukkah, we're hosting Rosh Hashanah. That's when family got together. And even though it was kind of crazy in the family, it was still such a good time to be with everybody and to reunite. And John, in a world where anti-Semitism is rising, how do we cultivate pride?
I think that story you just told is a moment of pride, right? You said her mother passed away, so she didn't have the tradition. But then she met your dad, and the family line found its way back. And now you were raised as someone who understands Passover and has learned the importance of Judaism and the history behind it all. Whether it's big scale hatred, anti-Semitism, or even small tragedy or family issues that pull people away, somehow the Jewish people always find their way back. I think there's a lot to be proud of. There's a strength that is sometimes hard to explain among the Jewish people. And for any tear that people cried since October 7th, just knowing that we do it together, for me, instills pride. You know, the national anthem, Hatikva, means the hope. That's what it's all about, is hope. So whether it's during the holiday time or just on a regular day, that's kind of the foundation of Jewish people. There's a lot to be proud of.
So as we close this awesome episode, and we're so thankful that you're here, we do a segment called Mitzvah of the Day. We want to know if you were going to pick a mitzvah to either share or we give ideas for mitzvahs to do. Last week, it was paying for the person behind you's coffee. So today, you're going to lead the mitzvah of the day. What would you recommend people think about when they're performing a mitzvah?
Well, there are so many ways, right? There's so many ways you can affect someone's life. But I think it starts with kindness, right? I don't think it's always about necessarily giving somebody something. I think just being kind to someone, have a little patience with somebody, listen to somebody. I think that part is the mitzvah. There are a lot of people in this world struggling, and there's a lot going on across the board. Give somebody 5 minutes of your time and listen to them. I think that would be an amazing mitzvah to do.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Speaking of patience, which many people are thinking about, they're going to need a lot of this weekend for Passover when they're sitting with their relatives and discussing, hopefully not politics. How do you go about enjoying Passover without talking about what's going on in the geopolitical world today?
Or talking about it, but in a fun way that doesn't alienate people.
Look, I think whenever you have the opportunity to be with family members of a different generation, you can learn something new about their life. Have them talk about what their childhood was like. We don't really spend as much time with our grandparents or even parents, depending on your age, as we think we do. So you can always learn something new about them. And instead of hearing about, what they think about what's going on in the world today, hear about what their life was like, maybe 30, 50 years ago. They always have a story to tell. It's always a better story than, hearing complaints about today's world.
That's good. I like it.
Okay. Thanks everybody for joining today. John, you're going to read us out. Just remember, the hustle is real.
Schmear is extra.
That's right.
Thanks,
you, John. Have a great day. Happy Pesach. Chag Sameach.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.